shorter practice towards the end. I got a lot of different topics today. So I think what I'll start with, you know, the drill, you have COVID questions, put them in the chat, but let's start with COVID. So two main things, interestingly, the spike continues to grow. Now it's just overtook the highest numbers of 2022. If that doesn't change, it'll actually be worse than ever because the peak is not slowing down. Particularly worrisome is California because their escalation rate is trajectory increasing. So it's not only that it's leveling off, the rate of increase is rising continuously. So it's like a hyperbolic elevation like this. I don't exactly understand that, except to say that probably because it's hot out there, they're probably spending more time indoors. But I think it actually speaks more toward contagiosity of this current strain and not towards anything else. That's my guess. Plus, nobody wears any protection, like frankly, like nobody. Wherever I go. In fact, I mean, remember we talked about the craziness of New York, that they were about to pass mandate? They did. So there's a large proportion of New York State mandates you're not allowed to wear mask in public, which is just insane. So they passed that mandate, and they basically claiming the reason for mandate to decrease crime, which I just like, really? Like somehow masking will increase your crime rate? It all sounds politics to me. That's what I'm thinking. I didn't look up which counties did that. I didn't want to bother with details, but it happened. Okay, so that's one. It's deaths are also beginning to climb. So the delay happening in terms of total effect, which again, everything so far is expected. Same time last year, sometime in the early to mid-August, we started to see rapid leveling off, and we're not seeing it now. So there may be a very unique situation. We may end up entering the fall with the higher numbers and kind of not leveling down. So we may just have a kind of a highest overall continuous spread circulating. CDC, so that's point number one. CDC just made an announcement that they're really pushing vaccine release, and we're now hearing that they're claiming it'll happen before mid-September. So about 4 weeks from now, that's their target release for the new vaccine. I've heard from at least several of my patients that they're having a hard time getting current boosters. That basically a lot of places run out of them, and because the old one is not being produced, since it's not covering much and the interest has been declining, everybody's waiting for the new one. My proposal is if you're going to travel and you're going to get a shot now, just shop around, just call different places. MFA pharmacy, GW pharmacy run out and they're not restocking because they're just waiting like everybody else for the new strain, new vaccine come out in September. So that's regarding that. Questions about COVID? Yeah, Jennifer. You're still muted.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So my spouse reported on some study he claimed showed masking didn't really do any good. What do you think about that? And
yeah, this has been a going back and forth all the time. So masking works. There's been multiple complex studies showing that. You know, I don't want to go back and forth about this, but kind of an old review. The surgical masking works very minimally, if at all. In some studies, surgical masks were completely non-effective. So I would say the surgical mask probably has a little bit of validity when the person who's sick is masked, because it will decrease amount of total particles circulating. But the surgical mask probably will not protect you much at all. The surgical mask will possibly protect you in a close contact from the size of inoculation. So it'll decrease severity of the illness if you get less exposure in a moment. But I agree, the surgical masks is a borderline. There's been studies showing no benefit.
But the N95s.
Exactly. There's complete different data.
Okay.
Particularly N95, there's 99% reduction of exposure. There's been studies done left and right. KN95 is probably somewhere about 70% efficacious, but it's still very highly effective.
Okay. So
recommend KN95. The problems with N95s, if you truly tried wearing them the way you're supposed to, it's very difficult to operate in them. They're very restrictive with the airflow.
Yeah.
And if you, especially if you need to move around, like let's say you're walking in a train station and you need to walk, let's say, I don't know, one-tenth of a mile or a quarter of a mile, it's not going to be an easy process for you.
Second question is, I had COVID at the end of April, beginning of May, no booster till fall, even if I'm traveling.
Correct. 100% certain. Because you're
Okay.
going to be protected from that COVID in April, May, better than the current vaccine. That's for
Okay.
certain. Because you most likely had the new variant already. And so there's just zero reason for you to get a new shot, this shot, the old shot, because it's not going to add anything. So it's not really covering the current strain. So I don't think it makes any sense. The only people for whom this shot could still make sense is we talk about this, right? If you're planning on traveling and you're just trying to say to yourself, look, very high risk of me getting sick during the travels. I don't want to screw up my vacation. Yes, it's probably not going to protect me much, but maybe it'll decrease severity. So I'll just kind of flow with my vacation despite getting sick. I've had a number of patients getting sick on vacation now. So, and again, good news is that most people have very mild symptoms, and because of that, a lot of people not even disrupting their vacation. But still, it's quite, it's unnerving because you have to think about all this. You have to inform people you're traveling with. I mean, it's not entertaining, that's for sure. Yeah, it's a great question. All right, so that you were just asking me that in the text, in the message. Yeah. All right. Okay. Any other questions about COVID? And you guys just feel free. I put myself on the screen, on the main screen, in case I don't see you. The best thing is to raise hand if you know how to do this here. Otherwise, just unmute. We're a small group today at 24, so we can just talk. All right. If there's no more questions, I'll move to some other announcements. Is it okay? All right. So for those of you who have a lot of allergies, and for those of you who are, questions? Okay. DC West End Library has COVID-19 home test. Oh, cool. Go for them. I think all those expiration dates are relative. And if you have a couple of kits, what you can do, you can sacrifice one. So you can open it and just test it. And if the control is still showing positive, the test is valid. That's how I think about that. So pick them up, don't, no matter expired or not, keep them in the house. Make sure you have at least 2 kits at home. One of the problems now, because the strains are gradually mutating, right? We've seen a lot of first-time negative tests. So you have to do 2, 3, or even 4 tests before you get one positive. So make sure you have more than one. I actually say everybody should have 3 or 4 kits at home at any given time. Well, we probably have like 6 or 8 laying around somewhere. So get enough, stick them somewhere. Yeah, Paxlovid is going to be okay after expiration date. Please don't quote me on this. I know it's getting reported. Oh, well, I shouldn't have said that, but it is. It's fine. The pills, generally pills that are pills, are going to be good for a very long time. In the worst case scenario, you lose about 5 to 10% of activity. It's still going to be more than sufficient. I hate throwing out pills. There are 2 reasons for that. One, especially if you never throw out pills in a sink, because that ends up in a water waste, and it's really bad for a lot of reasons. If you have a small batch of tablets, like just Paxlovid, probably okay to just toss it in a regular garbage, but just don't open them. Toast them in an original package. They'll deteriorate in that original package over many years when they throw them in a landfill. The best way is, if you have a lot of pills, right? The best way is to take them to specially designated areas. Each township has one. In our area, there is a disposal facility in Gaithersburg, and you can drop off pretty much anything. You can drop off medications, chemicals, anything that you worried about going to a landfill, like batteries, things like that. So you can just Google. Each location is going to have a toxic waste facilities spread out, and Usually it's like one, and you will just drive over and drop stuff off. Sometimes some of the facilities will require you to show ID, but mostly you just have different dumping stations for different things. Sometimes you can find things to be able to be dropped off at places like Home Depot for certain things like batteries, for example. But it's kind of easier just to get to know one location where you can bring pretty much anything. But what I do, since we're talking about this, what I do is I have a airtight or watertight container that I actually keep outside, and I gradually fill it up, whether it's batteries, old paints, some like whatever. When I used to change oil in a car myself 20 years ago, then I like that changed oil I would put in there same box. So like all these things I would accumulate, and then I'll take them in that box over when I would just pass through that area anyway, and I would drop it off. So, if you have a contractor who you like and they work with you, well, contractors always know how to do that. Like that's part of what they do for a living. So if you have a contractor who you periodically engage in helping around the house, you can also ask them to help you with the dumping. So, and then there's special services, but those tend to be overpriced. Our contractor, when we were doing this, if he was going there anyway, he wouldn't even charge us anything for it. He'll just pick up whatever is there and just dump it. Okay, I think I covered that enough. All right, so next quick news, and that is there is a update that just occurred. Let me pull it up, and I'll put that in a chat. And this is a med page today, which I kind of like. I follow a couple of different medical news. This is one I like. So MedPage just announced, I think this happened yesterday or maybe even today. There's a first nasal epinephrine that was approved by FDA just recently. So this product called Neffy, Neffy. So this is non-injectable epinephrine. It's a nasal spray. It's probably going to be available very quickly. It's extremely attractive because in contrast to a shot, the problem with the shot, you do the shot really quickly. It's one dose. They were crazily expensive, right? So they're used to cost pennies. And suddenly the automatic shots became something like $800 a piece. And often insurance was stopped covering them. So basically, if you were to want not to pay crazy amount of money for EpiPen at home, you would need to buy a separate vial of epinephrine and a syringe. Now, let's think about this for a second, right? Let's say let's say you have a bad insect allergy. You get stung, you're starting to have a crazy anaphylactic reaction, and you need to draw it out of the bottle and then inject. It's really crazy, right? Because you're going to not think this way. You may start getting really panicky and the bottle will shake and it's really difficult to do so. So I think this is a super welcomed addition. Now, I have no clue about the cost, obviously, because this is, but I think any competition to the EpiPen being expensive is very welcome. Now, I have heard that since this whole saga of EpiPen went to hell, there has been some lower cost insurance covered versions of generic forms of EpiPen, which of course is better. But still, it's still a shot. You have to know how to use it. You have to practice. You have to pull it out of package. So this is generally probably a lot better. It's if you go to this link, it looks like a regular nasal spray. So you basically put it in the nose, do a puff, and then it's going to work pretty quickly. Usually nasal effectiveness is just slightly slower compared to the injectable into the thigh or into, in the muscle. So I think the efficacy is going to be very comparative. Why we're only now doing this, I actually don't know. It never occurred to me to think that there could be this delivery mechanism. So when I read this news, I was very pleased because obviously this is a big deal. So, and also think of it if you have a kid, right? If you have a grandchild or a child, and then they started developing a reaction, good luck trying to stick something an injection into a kid. That's going to be pretty much more traumatic versus training a child with allergies to be okay with nasal spray would be a lot easier. So good news there. All right, if you have any questions about that, just should put them in the chat. Otherwise, I'll move on to our next topic, which will take a bit more time. And so this next topic is generally quite important. You all know what magnesium is, but what we'll do is, I'm trying to get that link 1 second. All right. So this spiked my attention after this NPR article that I found by happenstance. Patient of mine sent it to me. You know, so basically, what's the deal with magnesium, right? Or specifically, what's the hype of magnesium for sleep? The part of this article was written because there is this viral TikTok video about sleepy girl mocktail, basically mix of magnesium particle and tart cherry. Apparently that video circulated close to like many millions times, and kids are all over this place. Just like maybe about a year ago, my kids went all over the melatonin because there was some celebrity YouTuber who was promoting it, selling it to his YouTube channel. So now there's the same way magnesium going all over. So I figured if it's all over the internet like this, that I gotta cover this topic. But I think I wanted to talk about magnesium for quite some time, so it's just a good happenstance. So what's the deal here? Well, magnesium is a critical element. You're probably all familiar with it to some degree. It is a cofactor in somewhere close to 300 pathways in our body. It's not only serves as a cofactor, it itself also serves a critical role of electrolyte. And electrolyte is the substance that maintains a certain concentration of solutions or solids in the blood, right? And so without critical electrolyte functioning, we're going to have horrendous problems like arrhythmias, you know, atrial or ventricular arrhythmias, and some of them can lead to death. So correct amount of magnesium, both not low and not high, is critical for life. And generally speaking, we're supposed to get about 200 to 400 milligrams of magnesium from healthy, well-balanced diet. Question to everybody: how easy do you think it is to get that amount of magnesium from a regular diet, not from some special diet? Any thoughts on that? Throw your ideas in the chat. What percent of Americans, let's just take adults, because I actually don't know the statistics in kids, that's why I'm saying that. So what do you think is the statistics of a healthy level of magnesium in US population? Lynette, you can unmute yourself if you'd rather speak.
Hi, yes. I think the percentage is very, very low for people to get the amount of magnesium that they need from their diet. And I personally have experienced that, and it did affect my sleep. So I take a 500 milligram of magnesium every day, in addition to eating a healthy Mediterranean type of diet, because magnesium is so important. Like you said, it affects the nerves, it affects everything in the whole body, actually. And it's an important element that we need to have constantly every day.
Well, that's exactly right. So I see numbers 12%, 30%. Now you guys clarify what you're putting. You're putting the deficiency risk, right? Okay. All right. Yeah, so I think Jennifer is in the right ballpark. I think Elisa is a little too overexcited over the topic. Well, yeah, well, actually, I think you're both correct in a way. So here's the actual statistics. So this is based on the way how you look at population. So if you look at the general population, the true deficiency, now we'll come back to the word deficiency, because I used each word on purpose. So the true deficiency sits at around 10% on average population, depending on how you look at it. Now, if you're looking at people in different settings, like the hospital patients, that risk gets up at least to 30, 40%. If you're looking at patients in intensive care unit, that's 65%. So we're talking about 2/3 of all patients in ICU have magnesium deficiency. And then there's some really specific, like alcoholics, for example, they're generally at least 50% of them are going to have deficiency long-term, continuously. So pretty staggering numbers. Now, that is formal deficiency. Now, what does the word deficiency truly means? It actually means that you can test for it and that you can identify deficiency. All right, next question. I'll have to come up with some kind of award for today for the most right questions. I didn't think of that, but now that we're doing this exchange, I think award would be appropriate. I haven't thought of what to give you, but I'll think of something. All right, so what percent do you think, so what kind of test do you think we're using in generally to identify this? How is this defined? How is the word deficiency defined? Now, what test are we using for it?
I think, yeah.
Okay, so blood level. Very good.
Yeah.
It is blood level. Now, but here's a kicker. It is a blood level, but it's extracellular blood level. What do I mean by that? There are two ways you can test for magnesium. You can simply run a serum test, and the serum level of magnesium is kept at extremely narrow range. Why? Remember word electrolyte that I used? Because magnesium in a serum plays a critical role of electrolyte. So if for whatever reason that gets off-killed, you are at a much higher risk for severe complications, including death, right? The cardiac arrhythmias. That's the same with potassium. It's the same with sodium. So it's not the only mineral that does this, but it's one off, right? So yes, so it's a blood test and it's a serum test. Now, the much better test for magnesium would be something called magnesium RBC or MG-RBC. So that's a more specific to looking inside the red blood cells. Why is it more important? Because what we really care is not the extracellular level only. I mean, we care about extracellular, of course, but we care as much, if not more, about intracellular level. And the best test for this is this one. And this one is covered by all insurances. If you somehow worry that you may be magnesium deficiency, magnesium deficient, make sure you request next time you see your doctor to do this exact test. Not some random magnesium, because it's not going to show anything. Here is the next question. Of patients who have normal magnesium level, what percent do you think will have an abnormal magnesium in red blood cell level? There's no exact answer here. So I just expect, I don't, there's no necessarily right or wrong. I'm just saying what rough estimate would be. I think 10% is way too low. From my recollection, it's anywhere from 30 to 60%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So why? Well, because the magnesium RBC is just not tested enough. And the moment you start testing it, particularly if you select level of the magnesium, not in a way it's standard approached by LabCorp request, if you set the cutoff for insufficiency a bit higher, my general preferred cutoff of magnesium RBC is at least at 4.5. But if you look at the LabCorp level, they will give you normal even at 4. They'll give it even at 3.8. I think it starts at 3.6 to be low. But I try to aim everybody at closer to 5 or even 5.5. Why? Well, because then there is the idea of separation between deficiency and insufficiency. So if I have a patient with constipation, spasms, particularly like nighttime spasm in the legs, cramping of any kind, eye twitching. If I have people who often complain that they feel cold in the area where everybody feels fine, when they're unable to shift quickly between temperature zones, like they walk into the air-conditioned room and they're always a little chilly for the next 5-10 minutes. So whenever I see any of this, then my first thought is, okay, could this person be magnesium deficient? Next question. What other really critical aspect of magnesium function, which I already mentioned in the beginning, if you paid attention. So this is just to check who's having post-lunch coma or who's still here with me. So which other critical function is magnesium controlled, and assessing magnesium RBCs very frequently helps to identify this problem and effectively manage it. Already mentioned it. What specific large area of our functioning?
Sleep.
Sleep. All right. So this goes back to the article I posted right on top, right, where it says it's an NPR article, right? So go check it out whenever you have time. They basically talk about, yeah, magnesium is critically important, good amount of data, lots of studies, take some magnesium at night if you struggle to sleep. So let's talk about now kind of shifting towards, I mean, there are literally dozens of different magnesium forms and probably thousands of magnesium products out on the market. So which one should you pick? All right. I'll tell you my way of thinking. It's not the only thinking. Plus, I'm not going to cover every form of magnesium out there. It's going to take me probably 20, 30 minutes to do so. And I don't think we have time for that. So the way I think about magnesium can have a lot of side benefits in contrast to side effects. And then they can actually be side effects too, but they could be side benefits. So first and probably most common, if you take enough magnesium orally, you're going to have some stomach problems. You may have diarrhea, you may have bloating, you may feel a bit, bowels may feel irritated and gurgly, and it'll last for whatever your typical transient time, let's say a couple hours, maybe more, maybe even more like 10 hours until you fully absorb all of that and it kind of moves into circulation. So because of that, the different forms of magnesium play a critical difference. So for example, my preferred form for anybody with constipation is generally magnesium citrate. I'm going to start typing all this, magnesium citrate. Citrate usually comes in a smaller doses, anywhere from 100 to 150 milligrams per capsule. There are some companies, particularly now, makes this huge magnesium tablets that are more like 200 or even 250 milligrams. But they are tablets, they're sometimes hard to swallow. So usually, if you're going to go with the capsules, you're probably going to have to take more than one. If you're using magnesium for both, for sleep and for constipation to kind of normalize the bowel regimen, you're probably looking at taking anywhere from 300 to 600 milligrams at bedtime. Now, if you have a magnesium citrate powder, that may make your life a bit easier because the powders are just easier to take. You take a teaspoon usually would give you 300 milligrams. Again, you have to read the label to know exactly how much. And then you'll mix that with a little bit of water and you drink it. A little bit easier to take, don't require tons of capsules. More importantly, it's probably the cheapest form. Okay, so that's for constipation. If you have a perfectly normal bowel movements, you tried citrate, because the citrate, remember, is very low cost. Like you tried citrate, but you got diarrhea. Okay. First of all, don't panic. Like it's usually very transient. It never lasts very long. It'll just resolve the next day and it will be fine. So then you need to select a different form. And then I'm going to give you a specific brand. I know we're not supposed to talk about specific products, but this is it's something called Natural Calm. A lot of people know this. I'll give you a link to the description of the product. But if you're my patient, you want to do it, by all means, I can order for you from Fullscript. You can find this anywhere. This is, I guess I'll put the link to, Amazon. I don't know. This is one of such a common products that I probably don't think it matters as to where you're going to get it from. The company that makes this called Natural Vitality. And so what I'll do.
Are you talking about the Calm brand?
Yeah. It's called.
No, you can find that literally everywhere now.
Everywhere. You can find it everywhere. I just put magnesium from Amazon just because it's just the first thing that came up. So I just put the link there. You can find it in Tacoma Co-op, in Whole Foods. You can find it anywhere. It's one of the most common brands. It's not necessarily the cheapest, so I'm going to warn you about that. So for example, right now I'm on the Amazon page, just the first thing that when I Google, Amazon comes up on top typically. So, so this is what they have there right now. It's on 30% discount, which is nuts because this is about regular cost everywhere else. I guess Amazon marks it up and then discounts, and you're like, oh my God, it's a discount. So that's how they get you. But maybe it's a little bit more. I think the regular price is around $30, maybe $35. So, this is 16 ounces or basically 400, no, a pound. So that should last you for quite some time because you're going to usually use 2 or 3 teaspoons. A teaspoon is generally around 2.5, 3 grams of a powder. If it's a liquid, it's 5 grams. So this is going to be quite a while. And you can notice that if you look at the label of this thing, that the 2 teaspoons gives you 300 milligrams. So that's not huge amount. And also notice it's a different form. It's not a citrate, it's a carbonate. When you drop this in the water, you get this kind of a quick bubble splash, like when you're putting in emergency or other things, it like very quickly dissolves completely without trace, almost instantly. That's the benefit of carbonate, right? And the carbonate is much more neutral. You're not going to get diarrhea. Almost no one I've ever, anything can cause diarrhea, but very few people are going to have a bad reaction from it. Of course, it's available in all kinds of tastes, like you would expect. I have no idea why this came up as a raspberry lemon. I have no particular, I actually recommend for most people to get taste-free, just a chuck. Why? You get used to particular taste and then it's like eventually it gets boring. So if you have no taste at all, it's kind of actually, believe it or not, more neutral. All right. Yeah. So I love for you guys, if you have your own personal opinion about magnesium for anything, not just for sleep, drop it in the chat so everybody can take a look. Avoid Amazon Whole Foods if you want to support. Okay. Yeah, sure. There's another reason to consider avoiding Amazon. It's a little tricky here, but let's see if I can deduct this in a few minutes. So this is an actual natural vitality store. I would trust this because here it says an actual, this is the maker, Natural Vitality, or sometimes we just say natural. That's the name of the brand. That's why I said Natural.com, because it's a brand. But you have to be super careful because if you come out and you start looking around, you may end up finding other sellers. And that's where you have to be super careful because you have no idea. If it's not, Amazon does not regulate the sellers, and it's very possible you're going to end up buying a semi-expired product. It happens all the time. You will find something on a big discount. I don't know if I have time to do this now. I don't want to waste my time. But, you basically, you have to be, so this is all Natural Vitality store. So this is all fine. If you buy it from original manufacturer, of course, they're not going to take any risks, right? I'm talking about something that's not originally sold by the store. With Natural.com, there may not be competition because they're just flooding the market, and so there may not be any issues here. So I don't want to waste more of my time. Okay, let me stop here and I'll come back to this. Okay, so that's, in my opinion, best product for sleep. Now let's go back to couple of other things. So first of all, in addition to the dosing issue, right? Because I said the dose will vary between 150 milligrams all the way to a gram. It's not unusual for me to give to people who are super active. Let me give you an example of my own dad. So my father is, you've heard, right? He's a marathon runner. He's almost 90. He still runs probably at least 10 hours a week. So, I've been fighting with him tooth and nail to take closer to a gram because the guy constantly have cramps. And, it's not surprising, right? Think of it this way. He's sweating when he's running for 10 hours a week. So he has a profound losses of magnesium. So anybody who's extremely active and for whatever reason you suspect the deficiency because they have some of the symptoms I mentioned, you'd need to give that person a lot more magnesium. I mean, we're talking potentially a gram or even more, okay? So there's a kicker. You all probably at some point in your life have been recommended a magnesium. You may have been prescribed by a provider. Usually when you were prescribed this form. It's called magnesium oxide. And there lays the problem. Magnesium oxide is the cheapest, most stable, available everywhere. If you walk into CVS or GMC or whatever your local pharmacy is, you will find probably 2-3 dozens of different magnesium brands sitting there on the shelves. Probably half of them, if not more, are going to be oxides. Why do I hate oxides? Because if you look at the oxide, it's going to probably say 400 milligrams, maybe 600 milligrams, maybe 800 milligrams. The problem is that the oxide absorption is somewhere between 10 to 15%. So if you took 400 milligrams of oxide, you're getting 40 milligrams, maybe 60, that's all. If you took the citrate, your absorption is at least 50, if not 60%. So out of that 150, you actually, it's 3 times less, but you get more absorbed. And so you end up with actually higher amount with a lower amount taken. Why is it good? Well, because it's less likely to cause other side effects. It's less likely to irritate your stomach. It's less likely to cause nausea. Nausea is very common with too much anything, right? Zinc, any iron, any other metal or mineral you take, if you take too much of it, it can irritate your stomach and you can get nauseous. So magnesium oxide is the least favorite form. Try never to take it. I mean, the only reason to take oxide if somehow you got a free bottle or maybe it was prescribed with some specific reason, but I really can't think of that specific reason, to be honest with you. Okay, so then it brings us to the most neutral form of magnesium, okay? And that's magnesium glycinate. Why is it most neutral? That's because it's the least likely one to cause stomach problems. Unfortunately, oral magnesium, no matter what form you take, has a pretty high chances of causing some diarrhea, upset stomach, bloating, a little bit of nausea. It's because magnesium itself is slight irritant, okay? So with that in mind, what do you think of what kind of alternative ways of taking magnesium do we have? I think that's probably the last question. We're gonna wrap up this in a couple of minutes.
Nuts.
Okay, so you're talking about the food. Well, sure. I mean, there's tons of great forms of magnesium in food. I mean, our favorite chocolate would be one, although if you're worried about lead and cadmium, as you heard from last week, you probably don't want to take too much chocolate, but okay. You know, lots of fruits and vegetables going to have a lot of magnesium. Mango is very high in magnesium, but magnesium is everywhere. Okay, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about what route of administration specifically, if you cannot tolerate high dose of supplementation orally. And Jennifer, suppositories exist, but I will tell you, it is not most favorite form for most people, especially actually since, you know, it's actually quite uncommon. Yes, but it does exist. Suppositories do exist. They rarely administer for all kinds of obvious reasons. You know, main one is it's just not most favorite form of insertion. All right, but I'm looking for something a lot simpler. You all get it. Dr. Frim suggests eating Brazil nuts. I think, Janet, are you sure? I think Brazil nuts is really more for selenium. It's not for magnesium. There are other forms. There are other forms of magnesium.
Dark greens.
Pumpkin seeds are a great source. If you wanted to get the highest amount of magnesium from a nut source per 100 grams, pumpkin seeds.
Pumpkin seeds. Excellent. Thank you. So that's a great suggestion. Especially for guys, pumpkin seeds is my favorite too, because it's also really good for prostate.
And toss them in your yogurt. They're wonderful in yogurt.
Yep. All right, but I still want to get the answer to this because it's the last point I want to make before we finish this part up. In terms of what route of administration is alternative to standard oral, which you should consider in certain circumstances, and I'll talk about circumstances in a minute. And this is one of, and I do it myself, by the way. I don't tolerate tons of magnesium orally. I get runs right away.
Oh, the magnesium oil.
Okay, oil would extend that thought process, Lynette.
What about the
putting oil? How? Taking oil? How?
Epsom salts.
The sprays.
Okay, all right. So Epsom salts, basically topical. So the topical magnesium, now Epsom salts is only one. Of course, it's very common. We'll come back to IV in a second, okay? Rick, hold this thought. I want to end with that because you're right. The IV is the most efficient. It's most expensive. It's most cumbersome. It's also riskiest, obviously, but it's most effective. 100% gets absorbed, 100% gets distributed, nothing gets wasted. But the topical is the one I was thinking. And particularly, I'm thinking of creams and lotions. It's a wonderful way of getting magnesium. You can't get a crazy high amount. It's impossible to get over 150, 200 milligrams, but it bypasses the gut. So it's 100% absorbed. It just takes a little while, and it will not generally have an immediate effect. The IV, for example, will have an instant effect. With a topical, it's a bit slow. But magnesium is great for one specific thing, which is where I was going with all this. If you have a lot of cramps at night, or if you have a lot of restless leg syndrome or something like this, put magnesium on it. And I'll address the lotion versus creams versus sprays in 1 second. So, and try it, just try it. Get a magnesium topically and use it. Now, let's talk last about, because it's a really important point. Unfortunately, what Jennifer speaks is that the standard lotions or oils are very sticky and sometimes quite acidic. And they're going to leave this kind of a slight burning sensation on your skin. And if you're very sensitive, that sensation can be really bad and completely make you unable to use it. So there are some forms that I prefer. So there is a couple of brands that I like for this. One is called Trace Minerals brand. So that's good one. It's less acidic. And my favorite one, I'm actually going to give you a specific product. It's a liposomal magnesium with arginine. And magnesium top. And the brand is the brand for this is called it's called Nutrasal. So let me put that in. And this one I would need to order you through full script. You probably can find this. And this is called magnesium and L-arginine cream. And it's mixed with liposomes. And it actually leaves almost no residual. So this is the actual cream. And then the brand called Nutrazol, which I'm
one's in the bed and one's in the catasaurus.
Say again?
We're close then.
Yeah.
What do you say? I'm sorry, somebody is speaking. Carrie, I think you're speaking. I'm not sure if you had a question or you forgot to mute yourself. Okay, you forgot to mute yourself. Okay, so that's currently my favorite product. It's priced, it's not the cheapest price. You can find there is this Magna gel that I used a lot before. That is a little bit cheaper and a little bit more concentrated. I think Trace Minerals has a really good product, very concentrated and very well priced. So in short, find particular product you like. I highly recommend this for anybody who is the runner or who uses a lot of, like, who does a lot of exercise, a lot of cardio for long periods, right? Because unfortunately, the cramping, especially when you're training in hot weather, is very, very common. So this could really solve that problem. Okay, I went a little too long. We're not going to take any questions. I'm going to stop us here. We're going to reorient, and we're going to do a little bit of a mindfulness practice as our topic suggests. So find a position. I got this fancy new chair from my wife. Apparently, this is like the Cadillac of chairs, and it was used, so it was cheap. But I appreciate it. It's very comfortable. So make sure that if you're sitting in a chair, uncross your legs and put your feet on the floor. If you laying down, which is fine, just imagine your feet are on the floor. If you want to lay down, by all means, go ahead and lay down if it's more comfortable. But what I want us to do is we're actually going to do a little bit different practice. And I kind of like to do practices based on where we are in the seasons and where we are with the weather. So we have this really gloomy, kind of slightly sad, rainy weather in most of Northeast. If you're not in Northeast, I'm sorry. If you're in a beautiful, shiny, sunny weather, be with us. It's okay. Most of us here in Northeast experiencing post-hurricane status. So let's open up to a sensation of sadness, to a sensation of associated with this kind of gloomy state with the rain. Connect that sensation to our breaths. Inhale and exhale. We inhale, we hold on, and then we exhale and we let go. This is our natural pattern of life. What we want to do here, once we connect to our feet, feel our feet on the ground, on our floors, connect with our breath, connect with the sadness. If it helps you, think of some episode recently in your life that caused you to be sad. Not frustrated, not angry, sad. There's a lot of stuff in life that happens that causes the sadness. So without expressing anything, without connecting it to parts of the body, without trying to move on, just let that sadness be. Give it space. Realize that nothing happens when we stay with a particular emotion, when we tune to the momentary awareness that comes into whatever this is. And for the moment during this breathing practice, it's a sadness. We're not going to convert it. We're not going to ask it to move on. Just like the weather. The hurricane came, skies are gray, they're beginning to clear out. They'll pass just the same way. For now, we're hanging on to the sadness. We feeling when we inhale, we're feeling the space inside where the sadness stays. Now, if it helps you to connect it to a particular part of your body, maybe to the heart, maybe to the stomach. Again, without forcing anything, all we're asking ourselves is to allow for it to be there. Realizing that for us to feel joy, we have to know the sadness. Holding on and letting go. Without downward movement, there cannot be any upward movement. Everything is in this yin and yang of a balance. And notice that you're okay. Notice that despite the heart maybe feeling heavy, maybe you feel soreness in your stomach or you feel a bit bloated. Notice that whatever the sensation is, you're okay. Even if you're got your attention attracted by an area of chronic pain or stiffness or spasm or discomfort, dis-ease, but that's okay. The point is, we always try to move on. We always try to let go of things we don't want. The only way to do that effectively is to learn that you actually can also hold on to things, but not on purpose. You're not holding on purpose. You're simply learning how you feel in a given state of awareness, in a given state of emotions. Being comfortable with anything and letting it go is an art. Right? Just like Rumi said in the poem of The House. Keep our doors open to anything, whether they're even the crowd of sorrows. Because they're preparing, they're sweeping your floor for the delight that is coming next. Inhale. Holding on. Exhale. Letting go. Let's begin slowly deepening our breath, beginning gradually to lessen our grip on that state of sadness, instead just staying with the breath. Here, if you want, open your eyes, and particularly if you sitting facing a window or outside, or if you're sitting outside, just without concentrating on any particular object, just relax your eyesight and take in whatever you see. If you're inside the building, if you're not having any natural settings outside, it's okay. You can keep your eyes closed and then just imagine your favorite scenery. And without disruption of our breath, just take whatever comes to you. If you need to shift your eyesight from one place outside to another without concentrating on anything, just stay present to anything that's happening outside there in the nature. Even if it's nature, it's just a neighbor's house, it's fine. It doesn't matter. We're just observing the life outside while we're taking deep, slow breaths. And now try to become aware of anything in your body that speaks to you. See if there is a particular area, maybe there's a soreness somewhere or sadness that feels specifically somewhere in the body. Maybe it's in the heart, maybe it's in the stomach, elsewhere. Don't judge it, just be aware. I mean, this is the way our bodies talk to us. You may also not have any soreness or pain. You may just be attracted to a particular area for no particular reason. You just feel like, oh, I'm noticing this part of my body. I don't even know why, I'm just noticing. Don't forget the breath, slow in and out. No particular pace of breathing, just deep. You may want to look up at the skies. If you're not in the house, just imagine it. See how right now where I'm sitting, it's really gray. I don't see particular clouds, just all kind of grayish, kind of darkish. It feels quiet to me. It feels kind of neutral. Not sad, not happy, just quiet. Even though it's almost 3 o'clock. It's not in the middle of the night. Slowly begin to come back. We're almost at the hour. If you feel a little slow, if you feel a little more tired, if you feel a little down, it's okay. You know, I think part of this practice has also been triggered by some of my internal psychological work that I've been doing in the last couple of weeks. So I hope you liked all of that. Remember, sadness is just as part of our life as everything else. It doesn't have to be connected to suffering. It doesn't have to be connected to anything long-term negative. It's just another awareness. It's just another state of our beings. It's often linked to this kind of gloomy weather. It's often linked to late fall season, not necessarily late summer. I mean, I think late summer is still kind of active and sunny and warm, but we have days like this even in the sunny times, right? So we have a minute or two if anybody have anything burning to say. If there is a critical magnesium question or magnesium form that you love the most. I see Salome likes Therawalk. Fine. Is this